What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another amazing knife overview to do with you guys. These are both Curtis custom knives. The top one here is, well, both of them are F3 mediums. So the top one here is owned by my buddy Jeff. It's a more standard, more subdued version. And then the bottom one here is actually owned by my good buddy Harry. This is a much more dressy version. Both of these, it's important to remember, are full custom knives. Each of these knives are definitely in a caliber of knife that not every single person on the planet is interested in. Most of the reason for that is, the price. These are very expensive knives. If you're somebody who's generally interested in knives, just from a user standpoint, this is probably not going to be for you. But if you're somebody who appreciates elements of a handmade piece, or you're interested in knives where you pay for something that's a lot more than just the utility of the tool itself, namely, the hand finishes, the handwork, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into a handmade object, then maybe you might be interested in something like that. Anyways, if you are new to my channel, I like to do knife reviews and overviews of knives that are expensive, like these, and knives that are inexpensive, like budget knives, or in between, like the really nice production knives. I like to do daily content uploads. I like to do unboxings as well, discussion topics, a whole bunch of stuff. So whether you enjoy watching YouTube, knife stuff on YouTube on your TV or on your phone during your lunch hour, or you like to, kind of Bluetooth it to your vehicle and listen in your vehicle, this might be the channel for you. So if that sounds good, go ahead and subscribe and turn notifications to all. Also, I really like to do giveaways. In fact, I've got one right here that I'm going to be giving away soon. A lot of you know that I'm currently at 50 patrons, and what I like to do is set a Patreon goal. All of the money that I receive from Patreon from my generous patrons goes right back into the channel and pays for shipping costs for knives like this to go back to their owners after they've generously offered them up for review. Anyways, the next goal is actually going to be 60 patrons, so that's just 10 more, and I'm going to be doing a giveaway for everybody to enter, not just patrons. Literally everybody who's watching or paying attention or subscribed can enter. This is going to be the ProTech Massdrop Mordax button lock flipper. CBM 20CV, valued at about $200. So as soon as we hit that, I will open up a giveaway for everybody. If you're interested in supporting my channel and helping me reach that goal, there's a link in the description to my Patreon. You can follow it, have a look around, and if it looks good to you, you can join any tier and support me in any way that you see fit. I would definitely appreciate it. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about these beautiful knives here. I'm doing them together. They're owned by two different people, and I could totally do separate videos on them, but they're the same knife, and this just gives a good contrast between, some of the different options that are offered by Mr. David Curtis, who is the maker. So let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Now, unfortunately, I'm still using my old, well, not my old, but this dinky little tape measure. I promise we'll get the new one in soon. The overall length of the F3 medium, I know you guys can't really tell, and this isn't really helping, but you're looking at about 7 3/4 inches. I'll go ahead and bring that up to the camera so that you can actually see. There's the 7 mark and the 3/4 inch mark. Obviously, the one down below is the same. From tip to scale, you're looking at about a 3.3 inch blade. The actual cutting edge is about 3 inches, given that we do have a forward choil up there. Oh, I hate that tape measure. Let me give you an example of the action here. Both of these are about the same. They're very new, and it's something that I always say when I review knives like this. When knives are brand new, you can tell if there's an issue with the action if it's gritty. If it's tight but glassy smooth, that is a good indication that that ceramic detent ball will wear a path into the blade as you continuously deploy it and play with it on your couch or use it or whatever. That's what this feels like. It's very glassy smooth. There is no grittiness whatsoever, and I have no doubt that this knife, which is owned by Jeff, and this knife, which is owned by Harry, will break in exactly the same and likely become completely drop shut over time. It is interesting to me that the detent on this one is ever so slightly heavier than the detent on this one. But those slight variations are to be expected when you're looking at full custom knives, because everything's made by hand. The amazing thing to me is that between these two and the two cruises that I actually had a chance to review that were both Jeff's, a lot of, it's basically the same kind of deal here. I had a more subdued one and a more fancy one. other than a slight difference in their detents, they were almost exactly the same. To me, that is a sign of a masterful knife maker, is when they've got a design and they know how to replicate it so perfectly that the end result is basically the same thing. That's amazing. Now, this one here, I believe, is CTS XHP. This one is Damasteel. They're both titanium. I know that Curtis currently offers S35VN. I would imagine you have a choice. Now, you can find, I don't know if he still takes custom requests, but you can find these knives somewhat, you know, they're somewhat readily available online right now. Like if you go to Blade HQ at the time of this video, there's a few different versions that are available. By the way, there's a small, medium, and large. This is the F3 medium. I've never handled the other variants, but what you'll find is that not each one is a one-off, but you oftentimes, when you find a group of them, you'll find a bunch of different styles. It's a lot like the Olamic 247. When you find one, there's likely, like, you know, between 5 and 10 more that have a whole bunch of different blade finishes and different colored hardware, different polishes, you know, different setups. These are just two variants here. The top one has the holes in it. The bottom one has this sort of pill pattern, is what I call it, which is just milling in the titanium and then it's anodized. I've seen ones that are all smooth and anodized purple, and the hardware is anodized, you know, bunch of different stuff. So that's generally what you're going to see. If you're going for something extremely specific, it might be kind of difficult, but you know, there's so much out there that if you start looking, you'll likely find one that catches your eye. Let's take a look at this blade here. Now, they do offer a couple of different blade shapes. To my knowledge, at least drop point and sheep's foot are currently available. I love this drop point blade, or I'm sorry, this sheep's foot blade. As far as sheep's foot blades goes, this might be my very favorite sheep's foot blade that I've ever seen. What about the Hinderer sheep's foot blade? You're such a big Hinderer fan. I know. Honestly, I mean, I love Hinderer sheep's foot blade, but this is like the best sheep's foot that I've ever seen. I want to say the blade stock thickness is probably about 155 thousandths. Up against the Para 3 here, you can see 145 thousandths. I'm going to guess that's between 155 and 165 thousandths. I know I need to order some calipers so that I know for sure. But what you end up with at the edge, honestly, this blade is so perfectly symmetrical. It looks like a production blade where there were extra measures taken to get everything so nicely rounded off. And the same thing with the Damasteel one. I know you guys are like, show the Damasteel one. Same exact thing. Everything is so nicely rounded off, and you know, the edge, the final grind on the edge is so perfectly symmetrical on both sides. It's just awesome. All the lines are in exactly the same place, and it's just beautiful. I love that little tiny swedge up top. With a sheep's foot blade, you get some nice belly. You still have a little bit of a tip, but much like a Wharncliffe, you have a much stronger end or nose of the blade because there's so much more material backing this up. And with this being a 155 thousandths-ish stock thick blade, yeah, it's not likely that the blade is actually going to fail. It's more likely, if you're doing something extreme with it, that some other component of the knife will fail before the nose. I like the Curtis Custom Knives logo up here. It's a crosshair, which is the deal with the pivot and the pocket clip. It's my understanding that David Curtis is an avid firearms enthusiast, so it makes sense that his logo would be something like that. It's not in the way, it's not overly aggressive or crazy, it's simple. I like it. I have no issue with that whatsoever. The other side of the blade is sterile, and up top we've got some very functional jimping. Absolutely, it's just right in the right spot. It could serve to go just a hair further, but I'm not going to question David Curtis. For a lot of people, that's going to be in exactly the right place. I don't have an issue with it. The landing zone after the flipper tab is nice and smooth. You can see the choil here. It leaves you plenty of room to choke all the way up in this guy. You're not going to start having trouble until you get right up to about the second joint in your finger. If you're here or back and your fingers are about the same size as mine, you're in a great position there with the choke up. Taking a look at the flipper tab, it is gigantic and it sticks way out. But let me tell you, that thing flips. It is designed to flip. Whether you want to light switch it, you've got a nice little resting spot for your finger, or you want to push button it. Ugh! That flipper tab was designed to flip. That thing is awesome. It also serves as a nice finger guard, keeping your finger from running up on the blade if you don't want to go into this position here. Really, really nice. It's going to be a downside for people who are like, pocket pecker, I don't want that banging around stuff in my pocket. Yeah, I mean, that absolutely is a thing. you know, that can catch other stuff in your pocket. So, I mean, that's a reasonable thing to consider. But for those of you who don't care, or you don't keep anything else in your pocket other than your knife, it doesn't matter. Moving down to the titanium frame, everything has been very, very nicely rounded off. It's very glassy smooth, much like what I say about Hinderer knives and about Les George knives. Really, really nice. The tumbled finish looks beautiful. The pivot is just awesome, that gigantic crosshair pivot. It just, in this case, the blue contrasts nicely with the titanium frame. Like I said, there's a lot of different versions. This version has holes that are milled in, these sort of long pill-shaped holes that are milled completely into the frame and that go all the way through. And then there's smaller ones on the backside, so you can actually see all the way through. I kind of like how they don't, for obvious reasons, they don't do it on the lock bar itself, because that changes how the lock bar interacts with the blade, and you don't want to remove potential strength from something that already has the weakest point is the relief cut, and it's already that thin. Anyways, what I'm saying is it makes sense that they're going to do these holes like this. I like how that looks, and I don't normally like that. I still personally would go for either smooth or textured like that one. In fact, we will take a look at that one right now. This thing is freaking beautiful. This is Damasteel, not Damascus. For those of you who don't know, Damasteel is made by the company Damasteel and uses a combination of, is it RWL34, which has extremely similar composition to CPM 154, and then they combine it with some other powdered nickel-based steel, and what they end up with is essentially an ultra user form of Damascus that is powder formed and still has a very similar setup to CPM 154s. And that's a very well-rounded, very good EDC steel. So it's amazing that you're getting something as beautiful as it looks like Damascus, but it's Damasteel, something that's that beautiful and 100% functional. This is very well rounded in terms of corrosion resistance, in terms of toughness, edge stability, edge retention. Did I already say that? Yeah. But great. I mean, Damasteel is awesome. I don't know that there are really downsides to Damasteel unless you just want an extreme, one of the attributes of the multi-directional teeter-totter to be extreme. You know, if you're looking for a well-rounded steel that's also beautiful, I don't know that there's a downside to Damasteel. It's just awesome. I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments section. But anyways, the scales on this guy are beautiful. This whole knife looks like sunken ship treasure. Doesn't it look like, you know, imagine like the divers go all the way down in the water and they find this treasure chest that's like half buried in the sand, and they open it up and a bunch of bubbles and dirt and crap comes out of it, and laying right on top of a pile of gold and jewels and necklaces is this beautiful knife. My imagination is just running wild with this thing. This is amazing. The pill pattern on here is essentially, it's titanium that's had a bunch of these little oval shapes milled into it in random form, you know, in terms of size and length. And then he's gone through and he's anodized it sort of gold, and then there's little bits of like blue and purple in there, and it's so good. Interestingly though, on the spine and on the, you know, the lips of things, it's a deep matte bronze. So the contrast is everywhere on this thing, and it's really visually pleasing. Moving down here, on either version of it, you're going to have two screws that are a nice large size, so adjustments should be plenty easy. You can see they're much bigger than the little teeny tiny size that I don't like. Back here we have a very functional backspacer. It's the same style between these two. This one is bronze and this one is blue. I would imagine you have different anodizing options depending on the knife. Moving over to the other side, you have the signature pocket clip, which is just super cool. It does its job. It's very Rick Hinderer-esque in how it looks and how it's positioned and how much of the knife is sticking up out of your pocket. There is no left-handed carry option as far as I'm aware. I don't know if he makes a left-handed version. I should have looked. I'm not sure though. Somebody can let me know in the comments section. But it's very easy to get these in and out of your pocket. I haven't put that one in my pocket, but as far as Jeff's goes, I have. In and out is great. It's very easy to put it in, pull it out, deploy it, use it, put it away with one hand, and then just put it right back in your pocket. That's awesome. Any knife that can do that, I'm a big fan of. These do have steel lock bar inserts. You can see here the lockup on this guy is coming in at about, 30%. We do have perfect centering, and of course, no blade play up, down, left, or right. And then on this guy, I think it's about the same. Lockup's a tad earlier on this guy, maybe 25%. Absolutely perfect centering. and no blade play up, down, left, or right. That's awesome to see that type of consistency. You might think, hey, is there no over travel stop, or is the lock bar insert the over travel stop? Actually, on these guys, the pivot is the over travel stop. There's actually a lip cut there, and this runs into the pivot if you keep trying to extend it. So that's kind of a cool design, that the pivot acts as the lock bar over travel stop. And I don't know if it's an actual stabilizer, given the shape of it and how it might interact with that lock bar the same way that the actual hinder lock bar stabilizer does. And I'll give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. In the case of the Hinder XM18, the over travel stop is the chip, and it's lipped behind the frame. That keeps the blade, or I'm sorry, the lock bar from going past the frame. But what about moving this way and this way? Considering all you have is this material down here and there's a cut between the frame and the lock bar, it can actually go back and forth. That's what that disc is for. It's right there underneath the pocket clip. It actually stabilizes it and makes it so that it can't move in any direction. I would imagine that the pivot setup on the Curtis F3 does that exact same thing, but I don't know that for sure. These are just excellent knives. I mean, if you're the type of person, listen, if you're not the type of person to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars or over $1,000 on a custom knife, then yeah, these aren't going to be for you. That's all right. Everybody can think how they want, and nobody's wrong. If you are the type of person, let's say the most expensive knife that you've ever bought was a $500 knife, and you're thinking, I'm on the mid-tech mark. Do I spend more and get a custom? And if so, what are some good makers to spend that type of money on? I've got a handful, and I bring them up. If you want to know, you can look at my most recommended knives playlist and my favorite knives playlist. There is a difference sometimes. But you can look at the custom makers that I've recommended in there, and Curtis Custom Knives is absolutely there. This guy's been making knives for a long time. He clearly knows what he's doing. These knives feel so good. They almost feel like the razor sharp precision of a super high-end production knife. Those of you who have ever bought like a ZT factory custom, or like a really, really nice Wee knife, or really nice Riot knife, it's like that, except somebody's actually making these with their bare hands. I mean, that's incredible. The flipping action is awesome. And truthfully, there are a lot of things I like about this knife in terms of ergonomic and feeling that I like more than some of those like razor sharp. And, depending on who you talk to, some people like that, perfected machine feel, and some people don't like it as much. To me, this is like the best of both worlds. It's obviously handmade. There's obviously more attention to detail that goes into it, but it's at a level that's so good. You ever watch that episode of Parks and Rec where Ron Swanson makes that chair, and then he starts destroying it, and they're like, what's the deal? And he's like, it's too perfect. It's like it was machine made. That cracks me up. This is like the Ron Swanson chair of knives. It's so perfect that you might think, what company manufactures that knife? No, these are custom knives. They're handmade. They're amazing. And clearly there's a lot of different levels of whether you want to do something super duper dressy or you want to do something a little more simple and subdued. These are awesome. Ergonomically, these are great. It's not quite an 8-inch knife, but you can still get your hand all the way around the handle comfortably. There are no hot spots, and there's a nice choke up position. Not only is this knife meant to look nice and function, it's like fidgety and fun to play with, but it's definitely a tool. It's definitely a knife that you can use. Both of them. I mean, yeah, that one's a lot more pretty, but the texturing actually serves as a nice grip point. And like I said, Damasteel is beautiful, but it's 100% functional. There's nothing there that would stop me from saying, this is a functional pocket knife. I don't know that there's a whole lot more that I can say. The one up top, one that you're looking at, the more subdued version, started about $650. Harry told me that this one ran him about $1,180. That seems right on to me. I don't have an issue with those knives at all in terms of a custom knife. Obviously, I can't recommend these knives for EDC because most people aren't going to want to pay that much money for them. But for people looking for a custom knife and wondering what maker should I go with, what's the right amount, am I going to feel like I'm getting my money's worth with a Curtis custom knife? Yeah, for you, yeah. If you're already considering spending that much money and you like the look of these, if you're wondering if you're going to be happy with your purchase, my opinion is yes, you're going to be very happy. that is really about all I can say about these knives. These are incredible, and it's once again a situation where I am considering spending money with yet another custom maker, just having handled these knives for myself. You know, a lot of times it's really, really hard, you know, because like somebody who's doing a review, like somebody like me, every time I buy a Hinder, I'm like, oh, Hinder knives are the best knives in the whole world. Truthfully, the very first time that I bought and handled a Hinder, I was a little bit let down. But after handling, you know, 23 of them and watching Hinder Knives grow as a company and perfect some old things that were perceived as, well, that were flaws by most people's standards, now I can openly recommend them. But it's still my money that's being spent for that. And when you spend so much money on something, it's really hard to admit out loud that there's a flaw with it. Me reviewing these knives that are just, I mean, they're my friends' knives. I'm not, I mean, these guys are great friends, but it's easy for me to sit here and give my honest opinions on them because I don't get to keep these. I didn't pay for them, and my friends didn't make them. I don't know David Curtis, but what I do know is that he makes an excellent product. I can absolutely recommend these knives to people looking to spend this type of money. You're going to be really, really happy with your purchase. These are just great. That's going to be pretty much it for today's video, guys. If you found this video at least mildly entertaining, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.